Most businesses that sell for the highest multiples are prepared years in advance. Unfortunately, most business owners only prepare for a sale 6 to 12 months before they want to exit, and that's often too late. In this video, I'll be showing the timelines for preparation of a sale so you can achieve the highest multiples and what needs to be prepared so you can get the best outcome for your exit. If you want to sell your business in the next 1 to 5 years, click the link in the description and we can have a confidential conversation about your business sale and how you can achieve the maximum value for your exit. One of the biggest mistakes that I see from business owners is that they start to prepare for a sale immediately before they want to exit. So they think that they want to sell their business this year, so they should start preparing for a business. Business buyers, when they're looking at a business, they're looking for evidence that a business can run and it can be transferred over to them without any disruptions. And for you as a business owner to prove that, you normally need to be doing things 1 to 5 years in advance before you want to sell. And that's how business owners who do prepare in time get the best valuations. Because business buyers and investors, private equity, when they're looking at your business, they're looking at owner independence, meaning, is this business independent from the owner or does it rely on the owner? They're looking at systems. They're looking at predictable revenue generation, which is done through a structured management team and not through you. So the earlier you start working on those things, the better it is for your enterprise value. And enterprise value basically means, what is the value of your business on the open market? And I don't mean that your business is going to be on the market. What I mean is that, what is it worth to someone if they were to take over your business today and you are no longer involved in it? There are 3 main benefits for preparing for a business sale earlier. Number 1, and the most important, is the valuation that you will receive for your business. Number 2 is the deal structure that you will receive on exit. And number 3, the stress levels through the deal process itself and the handover. So to give you a brief explanation on valuation, deal structures, and stress levels, is that valuation, the most important thing that you need to consider when you're exiting your business, is that valuation is based on multiples of your profit. And there are many things that goes into what multiple is applied to your business. Everything from the level of profit that you have in your business, the industry that it's in, and other factors which you can control. Because the only thing you can't control is the industry that you're in, because you've already built your business in that industry. You can't really switch your industry after you've built within an industry. So that you can't change. The other thing is the profit level, which you can change, and that is often takes a little bit more time to increase the profits of your business in a way that will affect the multiple. But there are other factors which can increase the multiple of your business, and you can do them very quickly. Those are things like reducing owner dependence, meaning how dependent is the business on the owners of the business. That's about building in management structures, building in SLPs around your business, looking at the contracts of your business, and many other things. So these are things that you can control and you can clean them up quite quickly. But the earlier you do them, the better it is for the evidence building of your business, and therefore that affects the valuation and the multiples which are applied. Now, why are multiples so important? Let's say your business is doing 2 million in profit and the business is dependent on you, the financials are messy and the contracts are all over the place. So a business like that would have a multiple of maybe 2 or 3 applied to it. So if your business is doing 2 million in profit, your valuation may only be 4 to 6 million. Now, if you get the same profit number, but the business is independent of you, the financials are clean, the contracts are watertight, and everything else is in line and in place, the same 2 million profit, a 5 to 8 times multiple might be applied to your business, probably closer to the 5 to 6 number at 2 million profit. But you can see that your business will be immediately valued at 10 million to 12 million. So take that into consideration. You've got on one side where a business may be valued on the low end at 4 million, and on the other business on the low end might be applied is a valuation of 10 million. That's 6 million in enterprise value difference. What difference would that make? £6 million on enterprise value. And of course, when you're selling your business, that often is a more tax efficient way for you to extract money from your business uh, as a personal income. So that's why multiples are so important, and it's important to fix the areas of your business which will impact the multiples. The next thing is deal structures. Now, deal structures are what's the payout mechanism of that, 5 times multiple, 6 times multiple. So let's for argument's sake, your business is valued at £10 million. Then the deal structure is if the business is highly dependent on you, they're going to want to do a high earnout or a high deferred consideration element on your business. And the reason why they're going to do a high earnout or a high deferred mechanism in your deal structure is because when you leave the business, they want to make sure that everything runs smoothly. So they're going to want you to stay for a long time, and they're going to pay you over time as you leave the business. So let's say your business is valued at £10 million. They're going to maybe pay you 2 to 4 million on day one, and the rest of 6 to 8 million they're going to pay over a 5 year period. Because now, what does that do? That means that number one, you have to stay in the business. You have to make sure all of the handover is done in the way that the buyer wants you to stay and the handover to be done. And then the earnout might be based on certain targets that need to be hit. This deferred consideration is a little bit better, but still, you're having to wait for your money over a 5 year period before you can, capitalize on all of that income. On the other hand, if, for example, you've prepared your business for sale, they might pay you 8 million or maybe 10 million upfront, 100% of the consideration upfront, or that's unlikely if your business is doing 2 million. But they will pay you, for example, 8 million upfront. That is so much more than only getting 2 to 4 million on day one. You get 8 million upfront, and maybe only 2 million is paid over deferred consideration, and it's paid up much more quickly. So let's say on the first instance, it takes 5 years to receive the money. In this instance, you'll get all of your money after year one or maybe year two. And that makes a big difference on what you can do with your exit money once you receive it. And the final thing, of course, the stress levels. I mean, stress levels are stress levels, right? If you prepare and ensure that there's no things that need to be mitigated when you go through due diligence, which is highly stressful for business sellers, there's no two ways about it, because due diligence is a buyer really, looking at your business with a microscope. They're looking at every single element. They're doing that for two reasons. Number one, to prove that everything that you're claiming is true, and number two, to try to knock down the value. Because if there are any problems that arise through due diligence which affects the valuation, meaning affects the offer that they've made, that is going to be reduced through due diligence. So the earlier you can mitigate those things that will affect due diligence, the lower your stress levels will be, and the easier it will be when you actually hand over and sell your business. Now let's start looking at some of the timelines of preparation. There are four main timelines that you want to look at: 5 years before your business sale, 3 years before your business sale, 1 to 2 years. I'm going to put them in together: 1 to 2 years before the business sale, and then the time of the business sale itself. So there are four key milestones that we need to start looking at when you want to prepare your business for sale. 5 years to 3 years before you are going to sell your business, this is where you're really building enterprise value. So up until this point in your business, you've been building your business. You've been building the ability of customers to come into your business, the ability for you to convert those customers into sales, into cash, and then the ability to provide the product or service that you are selling to your customer. And then hopefully there's a resales process in that as well. So that's what you've been doing up until this point. But now what you're doing 5 years before your sale is that you're building the valuation, meaning how predictable is that customer journey, that revenue generation journey in your business. The two main things that you want to do at this stage is remove owner dependency. And you want to do that early on, because when I'm looking at businesses, whether I'm looking at them from an acquisition perspective or selling perspective, I'm looking at how long has the business owner been out of the operations of the business, and ideally out of the management of the business as well. Because if the answer to that question is oh, the owner hasn't been involved in the business for the last 5 years, that is 10 times better than the owner hasn't been involved in the business for 1 year. Or the owner, even worse, the owner is still involved in the business, especially the day-to-day operations. So as you can see, I mean, I'm sure as I'm saying it, you'll realize that actually, if I'm looking at a business acquisition myself, because you've got to put yourself in the buyer's shoes here, that if I'm buying a business and the owner hasn't been involved for 5 years, that's much more attractive to me. Why? Because I know that the business is running without them. It's not dependent. If the owner steps away from the business, nothing's really going to happen to the business. So that's the first thing that you are going to do. Reduce the dependence on yourself as a business owner. And the way that you're going to do that is by building a structured management team. So they go hand in hand. The only way that you can remove yourself from the day-to-day operations of the business is by building a structured management team. And not only a structured management team, but also structured processes in your business that are managed by employed managers. And you need to start doing that 5 years in advance. And the reason why you need to start doing that 5 years in advance is because you want to show the evidence of the impact of the management team 3 years before you sell your business in the financial accounts. So let me explain that because that's a bit of a mouthful. So let's say you remove yourself from the business 5 years in advance. You've got a management team in place. They're managing the business. They're ensuring that everything is happening in your business as it should be, as you want it to be, and that they are able to not only ensure that the customer journey and the revenue generation continues, but increases. So if you can have a management team in place, which through your processes and your IP, meaning what you've developed as a business owner over the years, they are able to implement that and grow the business. The evidence of that needs to be shown in the financial accounts for 3 years before you sell your business. Why? Because business buyers, when they're looking at your business, they're looking at least the last 3 years minimum, right? That's the absolute minimum they're looking at. They can be, depending on the claims that you're making around your business, they may say, right, I want to see maybe 5 years history of your business or a 10-year history of your business. But every single business buyer is always looking at the last 3 years of your business, and they're making assumptions on your business, meaning valuation, based on the performance of the last 3 years. So if you are building a management team 5 years in advance, that gives enough time for you to make any fixes that need to be made so that you can show evidence of your business performance in the financial accounts 3 years before you want to sell your business. Now, I've got many other videos on the channel which talk about exiting the day-to-day running of your business and building a management team. So definitely watch them, and that will give you an idea of how you can go about exiting the day-to-day running of your business. Now, we're still in 4 years or 5 years before selling your business. There's one thing that I said is about financial accounts. Now, you need to start cleaning up your financial accounts at this point. And the reason why you want to do that is because if buyers are going to be looking at your financial accounts for at least 3 years before you're selling your business, they need to be clean. What does clean mean? Is that you understand what is in your financial accounts. Is it clear the revenue lines? Is it clear the gross profit lines? Is it clear the administration expenses, all of the P&L expenses that you have? Is it clear what your operating profit is? There's not many add backs that need to be done. There's no sort of normalization exercises that need to be done to understand your business accounts. Now, there are going to be some add backs because, of course, you're still the owner of the business. So you're going to have things like pensions and direct salaries and maybe healthcare and other things like that in your business. And they're easy add backs. But there's not any major add backs that need to be made, which is, because you're running half of your personal expenses through your business now. All of that needs to be cleared up way before. And not only do you understand your financial accounts, but can a third party pick up your financial accounts and be like, actually, this makes perfect sense. This P&L makes perfect sense. This balance sheet makes perfect sense. This cash flow statement makes perfect sense. So you need to have these sort of 3 documents in place, and they need to be easy to read and to be able to, be explained without too much, footnotes. That, okay, this means this and this means that. The more footnotes you have, the messier it is. Because financial reporting or clean financial reporting shows a dependable and structured business. So all assumptions are being made. I mean, let's take a look at Warren Buffett, right? So I talk about the value exit principles, which is a reverse engineering of Warren Buffett's value investing principles, because he makes assessments on businesses purely on financial accounts. And this is something over time, as I've been more and more involved in mergers and acquisitions, I can make many judgments about a business just by reading the financial accounts. Yes. So you need to be able to demonstrate your business through the numbers in the full accounts and the management accounts of your business, because the buyers will be looking at that. The second thing, now I linked financials. That was actually a side point which I've linked in. The second thing that you need to be doing 4 to 5 years in advance to your business, you need to be investing in brand, right? The reason why you want to be investing in brand is because the more you can demonstrate the value of your brand, the business, and that's fine. I mean, brand doesn't need to be international, right? Of course, international brands, they have the biggest valuations, but brand can be local branding. So if you've got a local business, let's say, for example, you are an accountant and you are servicing local business owners which are based in the Midlands, right? So that's fine, because is your accountancy brand recognized in the Midlands, right? Is it recognized through your target market? So let's say, for example, you only work with opticians, right? Or you only work with healthcare businesses. So if you were to say your accountancy firm's name, would other healthcare professionals, know about your accountancy firm, or at least it'll be easy for them to find information about you? Because accountancy firms, they don't need to be big names. What they do need to be is to be able to be found by their customers very easily. So if you can demonstrate that, and the only way that you can really do that is by investing in your brand positioning. So one of the best ways to do that actually is through SEO. Um, Paid marketing, of course, definitely has a big impact. But the reason why I'm saying SEO is because SEO is that if someone was to go onto Google or someone was to go onto AI and they typed in accountancy near me for, health business, whatever the health business may be, your business pops up on the first page of Google and ideally in the top 3 results. If you can invest in that now, that is going to have a huge impact on your valuation, because the business buyer, whether it's private equity or an investor, they're going to be looking at your business. All right, this accountancy firm services healthcare businesses. If I type in healthcare accountant in Midlands, then that number comes up or that name comes up. To demonstrate that that's a real brand value, that will have a huge impact on multiples. So it takes time to build brand, and that's why you're going to be working on that 5 years in advance. So now that you've built your management team and you started focusing on brand, what you're going to start seeing is maybe some problems arise from the management team. You need to fix all of those. And this is now coming into 3 years before you're selling your business. Everything needs to be fixed by the 3 year point, right? So between 5 to 3 years, all of these problems that arise from the management team need to be fixed by that point. One of the best ways to increase valuation of a business is to eliminate the problems that you have. Now, of course, every business has problems and new problems come up all the time. That's why business is hard, and you've done the work that other people can't do, right? But you need to start eliminating the problems that occur in your business. As soon as you see a problem pop up, at least more than 2 to 3 times, you need to start attacking those problems and putting fixes in place with clear SOPs, standard operating procedures and practices, workflows in place. Remember, your business is now the product that you're going to be selling. So how can you fix all of the areas of your product, meaning your business? How can you fix that actually the business is being sold and it's not a faulty product? Yes, that's why you need to fix some of the areas. You need to put KPIs in place that, right, all of these metrics need to be hit, and these are the minimum metrics, and then we need to build on those metrics as you go along. So if you know that you need to have a 20% sales conversion rate and 100% fulfillment rate on the product and services without any customer complaints, then is your business converting at 20% sales conversion rate? Is there a 100% fulfillment rate on the product service? And are there close to zero customer complaints and 5-star reviews? And then with those KPIs that you have in place, that there needs to be clear reporting on those KPIs to the structured management team, not to you, obviously you'll be overseeing it, but to a structure management team. So 20% conversion rate being reported to the sales manager, the 100% fulfillment rate being reported to the ops manager, the 100% meaning zero complaints being also reported to the ops manager, and then the ops manager and the sales manager reporting to COO or CEO. You would normally be the CEO of the business, especially if you're not in mid-market. So if a business is doing less than 50 million in revenue, then you would still be the CEO of the business. But you just need to make sure that the ops manager, the sales manager, the finance manager are all taking ownership of these KPIs, and the reporting is going to them, and then they can all collate all of that into one single report which comes to you. Because when the business buyer, they are looking at your business, they can say, right, can a single report come to me, meaning the new owner of your business, and can I make sense of the business? Or they may install a CEO, especially if it's private equity. The general partners are not going to be managing your business. They're going to install a CEO in place who is going to be the person who replaces you. So those KPIs and clear reporting are absolutely essential. And again, that feeds into the clean financials. Clean reporting also needs to be in place. The second thing you need to look at, and this is very, very important, is key man risk. So if you've got one salesperson who is, now, let's salespeople are hard to find, meaning great salespeople are hard to find, because you can have one salesperson who accounts for maybe 30% of your business because he's such a great salesperson. But what you don't want to have is that your entire business is relying on one person, right? You need to spread out your risk. So if you can have 2 to 3 salespeople who are your top performers, and then you've got maybe 5 other salespeople also performing within KPI, at least 20% conversion rate. So the top performers might be having a conversion rate of 30 to 50% because they're so good. But your general other salespeople are in KPI at 20% conversion rate, then that is a good thing, because there's no key man risk in your sales team. The same thing when it comes down to delivery. So if you're delivering services, have you got 5 to 10 people who are delivering services for all of your customers that are coming in place? The other thing you look at is customer concentration. So here we're looking at concentration in sales department, in fulfillment department, right? Customer concentration is one of the key killers of all business sales. So generally in M&A, they look at any customer which accounts for, especially in business services, any customer which accounts for more than 20% of your business is considered a risk. I like to see that number below 10%. So if you've got one customer which is more than 10% of your business, that is seen a risk to your business. Because let's say, for example, you've got a customer who's accounting for 30% of your business. One phone call from that customer, if they say, I'm canceling the contract, and if you've got a contract in place, most businesses don't even have contracts in place. But what that customer says, I'm canceling the contract, that's 30% of your business, which has just walked out of the door. And it's going to take you so much more to replace 30% of your business. That's why if you start working on that now, 3 years in advance, that you can acquire more customers. So your largest customer goes down to below 10% of your business, and even 10% is too high, right? That's why I said below 10%, ideally 5%. Because if 5% of your business walks out of the door, then it's easier to replace 5% than it is to replace 30% of your business through customers. Now, at this stage, you'll also be looking at the contracts. So I mentioned most business owners don't have contracts, or most businesses don't have contracts in place with their customers. This is a big red flag on valuation, and this affects multiples, because if your customers are buying from you, they continuously buy from you, that's great. But the reason why it affects multiples is because nothing's on paper, nothing's been signed in, nothing's been locked in for a 12 to 36 month, 5-year contract, however long you have with your customers. Because let's say, for example, you've got a customer who is spending 500,000 with you every single year, right? So that customer is spending £500,000 with you. If you don't have a contract in place, on paper, that customer can walk out the door and that's £500,000 of revenue gone, right? But if you put a contract in place that customer has a sign, and that's a 3-year contract, you've now locked in 1.5 million in contracted revenue. Just think about the value that piece of paper has to a business buyer when they're looking at a business this customer or this business has 1.5 million locked in from this customer. It has 2 million locked in from another customer. It has 300,000 locked in from another customer. It has 5 million locked in from another customer. That starts bringing huge confidence to business buyers when they're looking at your business, because they can see that these contracts are worth 10 million in revenue. These contracts are worth 5 million in revenue. That has a huge impact on the multiples which are now applied to your profit. Now, of course, I've said the profits that's generated from those customers. Of course, you need to be looking at what margins each customer is bringing, or products, I should say, because your margins should not be affected by customers. Your margins should be affected by products, meaning services or products that you're selling. You can't have a customer that comes in and demands a different margin from you. There are exceptions for different sizes of customers. So if you have a customer that comes in and they are going to be 5% of your business, maybe you're okay in sacrificing 1% of margin for that customer, because you know that they're going to bring in so much more revenue, but not too much. So each one of your product lines, your service lines, need to have set margins in place. So for example, if I sell this service, so let's say you're a marketing agency and you've got SEO services that you're providing for customers. So your SEO services are going to give you a 60% margin, for argument's sake, or an 80% margin. Your paid ad services are going to give you a 70% margin. So those really need to be locked in by product, not by customer. So having good margins which are industry standard, and ideally beating the industry, because the best multiples are always paid for those businesses that are beating the industry standard in terms of margins. So look at your product offerings, look at your service offerings, and make sure that the margins are in place and that each customer is contracted for a period of time. Now, just on this, I didn't really want to touch on it too much, but there's a difference between reoccurring revenue, contracted revenue, and recurring revenue. So contracted revenue is, like I said, a customer is locked in for a certain period of time for an X amount of revenue. That's reoccurring revenue because they're going to continuously buy from you. Recurring revenue is like subscription revenue. Recurring revenue is valued higher than reoccurring contracted revenue. So if you can put recurring revenue in place, meaning money which is billed automatically on a monthly, quarterly basis, then try to do that early now, 3 years in advance from your business. But contracted revenue is also very valuable. Revenue which doesn't have those two, recurring revenue or contracted revenue or book revenue, that is valued at a lower multiple. And remember, everything's about increasing the multiple on your profit. So buyers, when they're looking at your business, private equity firms, when they're looking at your business, what they are looking at is how valuable is your future cash flow, not just your past cash flow. Right? How valuable is your future cash flow, not just your past cash flow. Now we come to 1 to 2 years before you want to sell your business. So this is the third point, timeline-wise. At this point, you need to do something which is really important, which is start preparing for due diligence. So 3 years before you want to sell your business, you've got contracts in place. But now you can start categorizing your contracts. You can start putting your contracts in order. Maybe say, right, this is the top customer, then the next customer, then the next customer. So the top 10 customers, you've got them in a table, and they account for X amount of revenue. Then you've got a list of all of your other customers which come out the bottom. So start categorizing your revenue, start categorizing your customers, start categorizing your sales departments. So these are my top salespeople, and then have top to bottom, and these are the people who are producing all of your fulfillment on your products and services. So have that in a table. You're starting to prepare the presentation of your business, not in terms of the IM, meaning the information memorandum. What I'm talking about is, are you able to demonstrate how your business is run from top to bottom? So the reason why you want to start preparing for due diligence now is because the more you can clean up 1 to 2 years in advance, when it does come down to actual due diligence that a buyer does on you, you're 100% ready. And one of the other ways that you can do this is by creating a data room. Now, you don't really need to create a data room 2 years in advance, but you should start creating a data room a year before you are going to sell your business. And in your data room, there needs to be at least four main categories: financial, so the accounts and everything like that. Number two, HR, everything to do with your team and your business, the people in your business. Number three, IT, so especially IT has become so important now, where all of your information is stored and how it's presented. And number four, contracts. That's all of the contracts that exist in your business. So when you have these four main categories, within them you'll have subcategories. So you can start preparing your business and you can start scrutinizing it. Now, here you definitely want to be getting a M&A firm to come in and start doing what I call dummy due diligence. So I always look at a business and say, what are the things that a buyer is going to be looking at your business? And then we'd actually do a dummy due diligence on your business to ensure that it can survive the due diligence process. Now, ideally, you want to have an M&A firm earlier, but if you haven't got an M&A firm that's looking at your business, you want to get them in now, 2 years before you want to sell your business at the very least, if you haven't already done that. So they're going to perform dummy due diligence on your business. And that is going to ensure that you survive the due diligence process. And there's no reason for a business buyer to reduce the price of your business because there are no red flags that have been highlighted. The due diligence process is very intense, and this video will not be able to do justice to the entire due diligence process. If you want a round of due diligence to be done on your business, definitely click the link in the description, and we can talk about your business, not only the valuation, but also how it can survive the actual business sales process to achieve maximum value. Now, the next thing that you need to do, and this is hugely overlooked, is that 50% of the time you already know the person who wants to buy your business or who can buy your business. It's normally a colleague or a competitor within your industry, especially the top guys, right? If you've done all of this work and your business is one of the top 20% in your industry at the very least, then someone from within your industry is going to pay you a good sum of money to buy your business. To start reaching out. Now, I'm not talking about, you're not going to your competitors saying, I want to sell my business. All you're doing is you're rebuilding and re-nurturing those relationships with people that you think could be potential buyers of your business. Now, of course, 50% of the time that may be the case, but 50% of the time you don't know anyone from within your industry or within your local market that you know in your contacts who could be potential buyers, because there's private equity firms, there's investors, there's people coming from international who want to enter the market in the UK that want to enter the market. Of course, they'll pay you for that handsomely. They're often the biggest payers. The people who may be operating in Europe and they want to enter the UK, they're going to pay a huge amount of money for your business to enter the UK market if you are one of the top 10, top 20% in your industry. So building or at least identifying a buyer universe. One of the biggest ways to drive up price is to have competition within your buyer universe. And that's why it's very important that you do speak to an M&A advisor who is going to be able to identify a buyer universe for you and create that competition around your business. Because once you have identified the people that you already know, you can take them to an M&A advisor and you can be right. These are the 5 to 10 people that I think, or companies that I think could potentially buy my business. They will add them to the existing list, and they'll also, M&A advisors, what we do is that we go out and we actually nurture relationships with people that we know that are candidates to buy your business. Number one, they have the money. Number two, they're able to complete deals. And if you just give them a number of candidates, they can add them to the buyer pool and hopefully increase the bids that are made on your business. At this point, you also need to start doing legal and financial preparation for yourself, which means that start identifying lawyers and solicitors who can handle your business sale for you, and also you start tax planning as well. Because many business owners, they've obviously got huge cash reserves in their business, and one of the most tax efficient ways that you can extract that money is by adding it to the sales price. But there's other factors that you need to take a look at when you are selling your business that can have a huge impact on tax, because the biggest threat that you have to how much money you take home after you've sold your business is the tax man. HMRC is going to take away as much of that sales price as they can, just like they've been taking away money from your business while you've been running it. So tax planning is absolutely essential at this stage. So at 2 years to 1 year before your business categorize your business, categorize all of the areas of your business, prepare for due diligence or do dummy due diligence, as I say, appoint an M&A firm if you haven't already done that, and start looking at who's your buyers within your industry and start legal and tax planning for your business exit. Now we come to the 12-month period of your business. At this point, all of the work that you've done now needs to be presented into professional documents, the information memorandum. They call it CIM, confirmation information memorandum, whatever the case is, it's still an information memorandum. This is a document that your M&A advisor is going to prepare for you. It's going to be telling your story about your business from where it came from to where it is today. It's going to tell a story about your brand. It's going to tell a story about your revenue. It's going to tell a story about your products and services. It's going to tell a story about your customers. It's going to tell a story about your staff members. And it's going to tell a story about the value of your business, the enterprise value of your business. It's also going to tell a story about your industry as well, where it is today and where it could be heading, and what is your place in your industry. So this is a very important document. So when I talk to business owners and I'm helping them sell their business, along with ensuring that the value exit principles are within their business, we look at 4 things. Number 1, preparation. And that's what we've spoken about in this video so far. Number 2 is presentation. So that's how you present your business to a business buyer. Number 3 is promotion. And at this stage, we're also going to promote your business. So going out to your buyer universe and getting bids for your business. But in the presentation stage, we're showing all of the best bits about your business, all of the strengths of your business. By this point, because all of the preparation work that you've done, there's almost no weak areas in your business, especially when it comes down to a business sale. So we're putting all of that in presentation documents. We're also coming out and we're looking at business, right? Simple things, just like paint the walls if you've got a brick and mortar business, right? Ensure that it looks new, it looks presentable. Make sure that nothing's visibly broken if you've got plant and machinery. Ensure that everything like that is taken into consideration, because that is going to improve the presentation of your business when business buyers come to look at what you're actually selling. So the document, along with all of the actual areas of your business, and to present it in the best light. The next thing we look at, of course, is promotion. Promotion is getting the bids in for your business. The last P is protection. That's ensuring that you're being protected. That's at the point of sale. So at this stage, 12 months within your business, that's where the actual sales process, the M&A advisor takes over almost completely here. And they are ensuring that they can get good bids in for your business and finding the right type of buyer who can not only execute on a deal, but pay you the highest price and look after your business after it has been sold. So this is what you need to do to ensure that you can prepare your business for sale, and you've done it in the right way. So 5 years in advance, 3 years in advance, 1 to 2 years in advance, and at the point of selling your business. This is what it takes to prepare a business for sale, and this ensures that you can get the highest multiples for your business. When you can achieve a 5 to 8x multiple on your business, that is one of the best outcomes that you can have for your net worth when you move on to the next area of your life and your business journey. So preparing in advance is going to ensure that you can get the best outcome, not only for the completion of your sale itself, but also for the value that you can receive from the lifetime of hard work that you've put into your business. Continue watching videos on this channel, click the link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.